This girl was a famous wedding dress designer. She turned all her customers into the most beautiful brides. One day, a customer who was 8 months pregnant asked for an annulment, because she was a celebrity who was marrying a rich man. The studio was surrounded by the reporters. If they succeeded in taking photos of her, her career would be damaged. It was kind of easy for Ariam. She was alone in the dressing room with the bride. The bride calmed down after just a few minutes. She put on the wedding dress designed by Ariam. The bodyguard asked the reporters to make a way. When the door opened, reporters tried to take photos of the pregnant bride. However, there were 3 brides. They each got in a car. The reporter chased them to the ceremony hall and discovered that none of them was the celeb. Ariam lured the tiger away from the mountain. Successfully deceiving the journalists, she could protect her honored guest. The bride got in the car with a gratitude to Ariam. As for Ariam, a wedding dress wasn't just a dress to wear in the assembly hall, it was also a sacred object that symbolizes the bride's most beautiful day. So regardless of their appearance, Ariam was passionate about designing gorgeous dresses for them. She was a well-known designer and a Chinese family wanted her to buy her design. They were willing to pay a big price. She excused herself to get out and tell her colleague. Her excitement was seen through the camera. Ji-hoon was attracted by her while spying on the criminals. She was fooled. The Chinese family actually was wedding dress smuggler. They fooled Ariam to sign the certificate of wedding dress ownership transfer, so they could sell it legally, as he didn't want her to get hurt. Ji-hoon decided to help her by scattering the smugglers. Ji-hoon tried hard to arrest the mob leader. He helped Ariam kept the copyright of the design. It was love at first sight. They had feelings for each other. Skipping the dating period, they just got married. Everything was so beautiful in the beginning. They passionately loved and trust each other. The married couple knew nothing about one another. The danger made them love each other more badly, yet, it quickly destroyed their love, because they couldn't tell each other their secret. She couldn't understand why he was always in danger. He got wounds for no reason, and he couldn't let her know that he was a secret agent. Everything stifled him that made him want to give up on his marriage. He was born to be a secret agent, but he really loved Ariam. It was hard to balance between love and work. He didn't want her to be in danger nor waste her youth for someone like him. The peak of the conflict was when Ariam caught him cheating on her. He wanted to explain that it was just a play. However, she didn't let him open his mouth, unable to reveal his identity, so he couldn't follow her. As a result, they divorced after 18 months of marriage. She moved on and remarried to Derek, a high-ranking diplomat of South Korea. Sophie, a friend of Ariam, introduced Derek to her. Ariam didn't love him as much as she loved Ji-hoon. However, he was the best guy for her, to the extent of his appearance, job, and style of love. Perhaps marriage was the appropriateness. To thank Sophie for introducing a perfect guy to her, Ariam designed a wedding dress for the big day of her life. Instead of being excited, Sophie seemed to be so nervous. When Ariam turned around, she tore the veil. Sophie referred that Derek was a bad guy. However, Ariam didn't hear her. Seeing the tear on the veil, she immediately took it off Sophie's head to mend it. Sophie didn't try to tell her again. Speaking of Ji-hoon, he kept living as a secret agent after the divorce, collaborating with Gulliver's team. He successfully caught Harrison, the top spy of green technology company Helms. Helms could even manipulate CIA, so they couldn't accuse of Harrison. For this reason, Gulliver had to find practical evidences. It was Sophie who gave them the evidences to prove Harrison a spy, because she was working as a scientist at Helms, a genius scientist in charge of the EcoSun project. And then she sold the chip to a third party at a high price. As she was going to get married, she just wanted to live in peace, yet, she was afraid of being eliminated by Helms. She asked Interpol for protecting her. In return, she would give them evidences of Harrison's guilt. Interpol and Gulliver founded Team 2 and Ji-hoon was a member. As Sophie knew many things, she knew Derek wasn't a good guy as he seemed. It was before Sophie's wedding day. She threw a bachelor party. On this occasion, she gave Ji-hoon the evidences, but she didn't show her face until she felt safe during the cooperation. Both Ji-hoon and Ariam attended the party. For a perfect disguise and finding Sophie easily, Ji-hoon pole danced on the stage and rolled his eyes to find her. Meanwhile, Pilho, who once was a senior manager of Helms, also an insider in the Felix organization, the double-crosser told him that Sophie was betraying Helms. As he loved her badly, he didn't want her to be in danger. He also went to the party to take her with him, but she didn't believe any members of Helms. She kicked him out of her party. As soon as he left, she was in danger and she had to run away from the real hunter. Ariam saw Sophie running out of there. She followed her. Ji-hoon also ran after Sophie. At the moment when the firework burst, Ji-hoon got a shot. He stopped and encountered Ariam. It had been a long time since they broke up, but when their hearts still raced when seeing each other again, seeing his bleeding wound, she ticked him off for not protecting himself. It was dangerous for him to explain it to her there. He took her to the security room to check the camera. Instead of finding the culprit, she saw him pole dancing and it made him feel embarrassed. She tore her dress and used the torn cloth to stop bleeding. he was used to getting hurt, his heart was melted when she cared for him. If only they were still in love. Pilho could get away from the guards, on the run from the stalker. She slipped and fell off a cliff and she could escape from the stalker thanks to it. Aryam took Ji-hoon to Sophie's home as she might turn back there. Ji-hoon didn't think so. Yet, he still went there with Aryam to take Sophie's passport, and shared her information with his teammates. Hearing that someone found a girl in the mountain, they immediately headed there. However, she wasn't Sophie. Aryam helplessly leaned on Ji-hoon's shoulder. She suddenly remembered that they were no longer a couple, so she stayed away from him. He took her to the hotel. Aryam decided not to tell him something. She called her husband back to confirm her safety. Derek wasn't worried when Sophie was missing as he already knew. He said he would come pick her up. Sophie woke up. She continued her run as she wasn't hurt. Heading to the major road, she tried to thumb a lift without knowing that the driver was Derek. Fortunately, Derek didn't see her. She stopped the next car and successfully called Aryam. The only one whom she could trust. Sophie told Aryam not to trust Derek. Aryam got worried and went to the park for Sophie. With the senses of an agent, Ji-hoon also went to the park. It was a crowded place so she could observe someone from afar. Indeed, Sophie was observing him from above, showing his sheriff badge. He tried to tell her he was the sheriff who could protect her, recognizing allies. They walked towards each other. A little boy accidentally hit Ji-hoon on the way he went to see her. As soon as Sophie reached the door of the towel, she got scared by a man and got back inside. When Ji-hoon got to the top of the towel, she was longer there. She was running to a bus. He chased after her, but she wasn't Sophie. She was actually hid in a tube. The stalker found her soon after that. Perhaps he had arranged everything in advance. He was a smart man looking alike Derek. A scream attracted people. Aryam and Ji-hoon ran towards the playground tube, but it was too late. Sophie lost her life. Ji-hoon failed to protect the witness. Sophie's death was a great shock for both Ji-hoon and Aryam. Aryam was taken to the nearest police station for questioning and went home with Derek. In the plane leaving Jeju Island, she remembered Sophie's warning about Derek. The gun dealer told Ji-hoon that the purchaser had a bruise on his hand. He wore a mask without saying a word. Ji-hoon couldn't do anything but to return and report it his leader. He accidentally bumped into Derek. Aryam was deep in thought. They didn't talk to each other, yet, three of all doubted each other. Back to Seoul. Ji-hoon got a scolding for failing to protect the witness. Ban Ji-min made a deal with CIA. Team 2 had to find out the cause of Sophie's death within 2 weeks, and the confidential documents she wanted to give them. Otherwise, they had to give in to CIA and handed over Harrison to them. In order to beat Helms, they couldn't fail this mission. Team 2 immediately held an emergency meeting. They had all the information about Sophie and her genius research works. They couldn't get why a genius scientist sold the nation's research work. Because she was rich. The suspects of her death were her Chinese fiancé, Pilho, and her close friend Aryam. Because she was the last person Sophie called before she lost her life, it put Ji-hoon in a hole. He knew his ex-wife didn't have a motive for the murder. Ban Ji-min didn't care. He didn't allow Ji-hoon, who was an agent, to be dictated by feeling. So he required Ji-hoon to spy on Aryam. Cora examined the scene of Sophie's death. Young-gu kept watch on Ji-hoon. When reporters distorted Sophie's death, which was full of enigma, Aryam knew it wasn't simple. She was suspicious of Sophie's Chinese fiancé, because he didn't pay a visit to his fiancé's funeral, nor check into the cause of her death. Pilho, who loved Sophie more than himself, was too heartbroken after her death. He found the double-crosser for the truth. The double-crosser only needed money, and he was smart enough to stay away from the fight between Helms and Gulliver. Dubong promised to help him find out the culprit, on a condition that Pilho let him know everything about Helms. He agreed. Back to Ji-hoon and his mission, he closely followed Aryam to the art gallery, but she was merely trading wedding dresses with Ms. Kim. Kim is the illegitimate daughter of the chairman of DDK Group. Ms. Kim wasn't interested in a marriage made for political reason, so she asked Aryam made a simple wedding dress for her. Aryam didn't know how to comfort her, so she accepted the request and returned to the store. To move things along, Ji-hoon came to see Aryam at her store. She felt embarrassed in front of her employees. To avoid misunderstandings, she treated him like a client, and took him to the fitting room for grooms. Unexpectedly, her husband also went there. Aryam forgot her phone in the fitting room. Taking this opportunity, he copied her phone's data. She just texted with her clients. As soon as he finished, Derek got inside. Ji-hoon was startled. Derek realized something wrong with his wife's phone. So he struck a conversation with Ji-hoon, in order to see if Ji-hoon was hiding something. Ji-hoon was smart and skilled enough to satisfy Derek's doubts. Derek helped Ji-hoon fix his necktie and a confused scene occurred. People might think they're a couple. Derek started at Ji-hoon and smiled. Ji-hoon started at Derek's manners. Fortunately, Young-gu made a call, giving him an excuse to leave. Ji-hoon felt disgusting. He wondered if Derek had flirted with him after marrying his ex-wife. Actually, Derek knew Ji-hoon was Aryam's ex-husband. Coming home, he threw his jacket and went straight to his reading room. He attached Ji-hoon's photo in a book. Meanwhile, Ji-hoon kept firing the gun. He gave loose to his jealousy and regret when he let Aryam go. He stopped firing when he could pull himself together. He was a regular customer, so the owner asked after him. He didn't know that Ji-hoon divorced Aryam. The owner said Aryam was getting better and better at shooting. Ji-hoon wondered since when she knew how to shoot. However, he had to focus on the cause of Sophie's death. Sophie's colleague was the new target. He told Young-gu to pour coffee over Sung-hwan on purpose, spying on him. They saw he talked with someone. That was Aryam. She asked Sung-hwan if Sophie had a conflict with someone at work. He claimed that she didn't, yet, he felt strange when she asked for his help before the day she was missing. Sophie used a very old landline phone at her home once every year to avoid being watched. According to the sound, he could tell that someone took her home on a motorbike, having the information she needed. Ji-hoon was amazed when Aryam disappeared in a blink of an eye. She saw someone trying to break in the hotel room where Sophie stayed, then she called someone for help. The intruder smelled something and ran away. Aryam failed to catch him. She risked her life to cut in ahead of the escaping car. The intruder still drove ahead. Thanks to the GPS tracker, Ji-hoon knew where she was. He kicked Young-gu out of the car to take care of Aryam while he chased after the intruder. He followed the intruder to a narrow road, the intersection. He was blocked by a truck. The goats spilled into the street. They sounded like laughing at Ji-hoon's failure. Young-gu took Aryam to the hospital for a treatment. Derek heard about her accident. He called her to confirm where she was, but Aryam didn't pick up the phone. Derek was disappointed when she texted him she was in a meeting. He knew everything, and everything was within his control. He just needed her trust and loyalty, but she chose to lie and doubt him. Ban Ji-min realized that Aryam had sharp sense of intuition. She came to the hotel room where Sophie stayed and found the suspect. Following instincts is a necessary skill for an agent. He wanted Ji-hoon to tell her who he really was and offered a cooperation. When she returned to her store, Derek was waiting for her with his disappointment. She told him the truth all of a sudden. "Honey, I'm sorry for lying to you. I went to the hotel where Sophie stayed in the morning. There, I encountered a suspect. I'm sure her death wasn't that simple." Derek regained his trust in her, yet, he still asked why she went there. She thought it was fate as she saw someone chasing after Sophie. She couldn't save her friend's life, so she was determined to catch the culprit. Derek didn't allow because she would be in danger. He asked her to stay away from it and Aryam didn't listen to him. She only smiled when Derek promised to help her handle this. After that, she told him that her dash cam was broken. Derek realized that someone was spying on his wife. He drove her car straight home and assigned his assistant to fix the black box. Suddenly, a playboy guy arrived in his sport car. He was Ms. Kim's older brother, the eldest child of the chairman of DDK Group. He was an arrogant addict. It was all thanks to his powerful father. Kim was passionate about customizing cars, so he was close to Derek. That was within Ji-hoon's reach. He wanted to quietly arrest Aryam's husband, who looked very suspicious. The following morning, Ban Ji-min asked Aryam for a talk. He knew she really wanted to investigate Sophie's death. He wanted to work with her as she had a sharp sense of intuition. Hearing so, Aryam gave him what she found in Sophie's wallet. There was an airfare to a tax haven, and a mobile phone to contact Interpol. As the piece of information was very helpful, he couldn't wait to have her join his team. He asked Ji-hoon to put on his uniform and came to his office. He wanted to let Aryam know about Ji-hoon's identity, but he didn't tell Ji-hoon in advance. When the door was opened, both of Aryam and Ji-hoon saw each other in awe. Mr. Ban told Aryam that Ji-hoon was the sheriff of Team 2 who contacted to Sophie for her own safety. No reason to hide. Ji-hoon admitted his true identity. He was captain of Gulliver's Team 2, who specialized in hunting economic spies in Asia. That meant what he had done before that upset her was for his missions. At first, she didn't buy into it. Then, she got angry. They once got married and lived a happy life. Turns out it was just a fake life to fool her. Ji-hoon was very sorry. He let her know that Helms was an organization trading business secrets. Sophie wanted to escape from there to start a new life. And to wipe it down, Team 2 needed Aryam's help. She got angry as he fooled her for so many years. He only revealed himself when needing her help. It seemed like he had been using her. It was true, so Ji-hoon couldn't defend himself. When she went back home, she teared up recalling the harsh words she had talked to him. She thought he was a fool without knowing that he was in danger every day. Perhaps from the beginning, their marriage was a mistake. Derek saw Aryam went home under the influence. He still joked with her, yet, he soon smelled something. The next morning, Aryam was still in a very bad mood, so she went to the rifle range. She took accurate aim and Ji-hoon saw it. They had a talk and he learned that she learned how to fire a gun due to the sufferings he caused to her. For this reason, she got better and better at shooting. She asked him if he chose not to tell since he had no faith in her. Ji-hoon didn't believe in himself. Even if she accepted who he was, she would have been alone for months and waited for him in anxiety every day. Would she be happy? Or would it be a succession of tiring days? That was why he didn't tell her. After crying their hearts out, They felt much more comfortable. She was willing to forgive him and let pass his mistakes. Also, she would forget their history. Could they move on? Ji-hoon attached much importance to his job, like the way Aryam took care of her designs. Understanding that, she decided to give Ji-hoon a hand. On the way they went home, Aryam realized that someone flattened her tire. As she needed to go to her store as soon as possible, Ji-hoon took her there on his motorbike. When they arrived, Derek was already there with a bouquet. Coincidentally, there were 2 groom mannequins in her store, which referred to the presence of those 2 men in her life. Ji-hoon didn't want to put her in a ticklish situation, so he just smiled at Derek without telling a word. However, Aryam was honest with her husband that Ji-hoon was her ex-husband. Derek felt that he was respected and triumphant. Then he stepped forward and greeted Ji-hoon. Ji-hoon felt uncomfortable. Willing speech but unwilling heart, they held each other's hand tight as a warning to stay away from Aryam. As Aryam was Derek's wife, he could comfortably hug her in public. Derek invited Ji-hoon to a dinner and asked why Ji-hoon needed his wife's help. Neither could Aryam and Ji-hoon tell him the truth. When smart Ji-hoon saw an old man dropped his set of teeth, he said he lost his teeth after an accident. Ji-hoon didn't have enough money, so that he borrowed Aryam's money to buy himself a new set of teeth. Aryam coordinated with him. She said, "We understand, don't speak too much or you might drop your set of teeth." Derek tried not to burst out laughing. He acted as an elegant man and agreed to lend Ji-hoon money. After that, he politely excused himself to the toilet and turned on the recorder to bug them. Ji-hoon knew it and signaled Aryam to keep acting. Seeing the recorder, she felt a little bit sad inside. Because her husband doubted her, remembering Sophie's warning, she wondered if her husband was acting. Ji-hoon was good at acting since he was an intelligencer, who Derek really was. Ji-hoon pretended to have a stomachache and left. He acted as a coward, getting money out of his ex let down Derek's guard. Aryam was so sorry for lying to her husband. He didn't want her to think too much, holding her husband's warm hand. She promised to get back to normal after demanding justice for Sophie. Her life would revolve around him. Ji-hoon would disappear from her life for good. Knowing that Derek still put a watch on him, Ji-hoon asked Cora to act as his girlfriend. They had caressing manners going outside. Young-gu couldn't stand it because he had a crush on Cora so far. He wished they would stay away from each other soon. The one who stalked Cora was Derek's assistant. He gave Derek photos of Ji-hoon. According to Tinker, Ji-hoon was a loser who was trying to get his ex's money for his new girlfriend. Derek felt satisfied, but he did not expect that Ji-hoon also put a watch on him. For this reason, Ji-hoon knew that he couldn't hold a candle to Derek to the extent of his background, knowledge, and the way of loving Aryam. He was also a collector of luxury cars and antique. Ji-hoon felt a bit intimidated, knowing that Derek was a man of jealousy. Ji-hoon could only meet and exchange information with Aryam in the back room of her store. Cora's mission was to approach Dubong, who was a former spy of Felix with a large source of information. With her beauty, cleverness, folly as a watch smuggler, she succeeded in luring him to take her home. Cooking was the only thing he had to show off to her. That was also a chance for Cora to attach a bug in his house. They bugged the talk between Dubong and Pilho. Thanks to this, they knew that Pilho loved Sophie so much. The supervision was just Team 2's first step. They needed to find out where Sophie's fiancé was. He arrived in Korea to attend a technology seminar as a Chinese expert in fusion power. Each member of Team 2 got in their positions. As it was an international conference, diplomats like Derek also attended. The guest Derek welcomed was gay. In the elevator, he suggested a date with Derek. Derek was exactly his type in consideration of his look and figure. Derek got the creeps. He showed his wedding ring as a polite refusal. However, the client even liked him more. In the sauna room, he saw Derek's red panties. Then he asked to have a massage together. During the massage, he fell asleep. Taking this occasion, Derek sneaked into the client's room. He searched for the confidential files, but they weren't there. A while later, it was time to turn back to the massage room. Just in time the client woke up. Derek showed up with a brewed tea. Aryam and Ji-hoon found Sophie's fiancé at the memorial park. He really loved and felt sorry for her fiancé, though he knew it was something shady about her death. He daren't buy into anyone. That was why he waited until then to show up. According to him, her ex-boyfriend was a diplomat who was keen on customizing cars and antique. Aryam thought of her husband. She and Ji-hoon returned to her store for a discussion, thanks to the pair of glasses that Young-gu gave him. He found a hidden camera. Derek supervised his wife through this. He was still suspicious of her, getting angry about that. Ji-hoon stared at the hidden camera. He wondered whether Derek really loved her or controlled her. However, he decided to handle it alone without telling Aryam. At night when Aryam left her store, Ji-hoon sneaked into the back room without letting the staff see him. He went straight into the room. He attached the chip breaking the signal of the hidden camera and left before someone got in. No one realized he was already there. As he left no traces at all, he didn't take the hidden camera off to find out who put it there. Couldn't let affection blind reason. He shouldn't be sure it was Derek. Team 2 knew for sure that Ariam didn't have a problem, it was her husband who they should keep a watch on. So they temporarily spied on Pilho. He was working with Dubong. He let Dubong know what Helms was doing. In return, Dubong would help him find the one who took Sophie's life. While bugging them, Team 2 did not expect that the most loyal man to Helms like Pilho was betraying for the one he loved. Sophie's ex-boyfriend was the problem. Was he Derek? Ji-hoon didn't tell his teammates yet. Ariam asked her husband if he shared a history with Sophie. 2 years ago, they met at a party. Sophie saw it and told Ariam not to be close with Derek. Sophie actually didn't introduce them together like Ariam said. Ariam was impressed by Derek's sense of humor, and she dated him. Derek was also enchanted by Ariam's beauty and talent. He shared with her about his hobbies, then asked for her hand in his garage. "I don't care about your past, I love you and want to protect you for the rest of my life." Being touched, Ariam agreed. They promised not to doubt or lie to each other, nor keep secrets from one another. She wanted to know if he was Sophie's ex, yet, she didn't ask him straight. Perhaps it was his little secret so that she didn't want to put him in awkward situation, to heat up their love life. Ariam asked for a new pre-wedding album which would be used to promote her wedding dress store. Derek happily agreed with her. Life is unpredictable. It was so different when Ariam got married this time. Last time, there were just a few guests of the groom, and this time, there were many guests attending her graceful wedding. The groom looked at her with proud eyes. The wedding dresses were the problem both times. Ji-hoon carelessly tore her dress sleeve. At her second wedding, someone poured wine on her dress. This time, Ariam had to keep it carefully. For the photo shoot in the weekend, Derek met up with Pilho in secret. They were finding the one who had Sophie's confidential files. Derek doubted Dubong and Pilho was also investigating him. After that, Derek had a fitting at Ariam's store. Ji-hoon felt so uncomfortable seeing them together. He had a good time with Ariam. It was a beautiful memory. Derek suddenly stared at the hidden camera. Ji-hoon was stunned. He had to put it aside when he was called for an urgent. Derek really loved his wife. When she cooked for him, he thought of himself. He used to be a spy, taking pleasure in manipulating and lying to others, since the day Ariam appeared in his life. He had been experiencing true happiness, afraid of losing her. He couldn't speak it out though he wanted to let her know about his true identity. So many times at night, she encountered Derek's assistant in her husband's garage. He looked like the one trying to break into Sophie's hotel room. Even the wrench was also the same as the one which she threw at the stalker's head. Derek's assistant had the same wound. Sensing the danger, Ariam was about to leave but he blocked her way. Derek witnessed everything from a distance. He knew she would be in danger if he let her know about him. Eventually, he decided to cover the truth and relieve her. She wanted to see the car which took them a month to customize, but they didn't let her. This made her momentarily disappointed, because what she feared most in marriage was concealment and lies. Ariam smiled and left. Looking at her husband, she wondered if she should tell Ji-hoon about that. Ji-hoon was watching the footage of Derek. He didn't know what to do. Meanwhile, his teammate was in a trouble. Cora encountered Pilho at Dubong's home. When Dubong brought noodles to them, he accidentally dipped the bug into the broth. The signal was cut off. Younggu couldn't bug them. He was extremely worried. Luckily, Cora was versatile. She comfortably played mahjong with Dubong and Pilho. She didn't know why Pilho always let her win. Younggu made a call because he couldn't bug them. She excused herself to leave without taking along a mahjong card with Pilho's print. As soon as she left, Pilho expressed his doubts about her, since Dubong really had feelings for her. He disclaimed Pilho's doubts. Through what he said, Dubong learned that Pilho was inferior to Derek. According to Dubong's information, the assassin taking Sophie's life was sent by Derek. Cora let Younggu know that she was safe. Suddenly, Dubong's henchmen opened the door to check it out. They hid themselves under the table. Cora gave Younggu a signal. She wanted him to escape from there. His heart was melted. Younggu found Pilho's profile with his fingerprint. Pilho received a scholarship to study abroad. Sophie also got it from the same fund organization. Thus, they needed to investigate that fund organization. Ariam raised a doubt. She drove her staff's car following after her husband's assistant. The previous night, she saw an album. Derek and his assistant had known each other for a long time. The assistant usually came to different scrapyards for the spares to customize the cars. Ariam went deep inside and Ji-hoon followed her to make sure of her safety. He was right behind her. Venture nothing, lose all things. Ariam saw the car that hit and ran the other day. When Tinker was somewhere else, she sneaked into the car. However, Tinker was coming back to the car. Ji-hoon was ready to knock Tinker senseless. At the important moment, the owner of the scrapyard found the spare. He asked Tinker to get back. Thanks to his, Ariam could escape from danger. Tinker and Ariam disliked each other. At midnight, he reported to the Baron about Derek's progress. By the way, he mentioned Ariam as an obstacle. Aside from Pilho and Tinker, Kim Dong-taek of the DDK group also worked with Derek to compete with his step-sister to become the inherit. Yet, he was conjurer. Just a spoiled addict who gave Derek money to buy Sophie's research. Derek swallowed his pride when he needed Kim's money and power. He came home tiresomely and saw his wife on his home office, yet, he frostily asked her out. The existence of secrets caused an invisible barrier between them. The following morning, they took pre-wedding photos as a happy couple. For the first time, Ariam wondered if Derek was acting to be soft and well-mannered. She came up with an idea of spreading cream on his face. Derek didn't get it when she told him to express his true feelings. She tried again and he threw up the cake. Their photo shoot was screwed. At night, Ariam followed after Derek, and he saw him meeting up with Pilho. They actually were brothers. Ariam came back to her store and drank to suppress her fear. Why did her husband keep so many things from her? How dangerous was he? Ji-hoon didn't want her to marry a criminal, so he planned to win over Derek's men. First, he intentionally wrote a letter about Sophie to Pilho. Pilho really came to the place prescribed in the letter. As soon as Pilho arrived, Ji-hoon played a video of Sophie, then he showed up to tell Pilho about her true identity and proved himself as her protector. Pilho got mad and blamed Ji-hoon for failing to save her life. Ji-hoon was certain that even if Pilho could stay by her side, he would also fail to save her from those powerful criminals. Ji-hoon asked Pilho to help him dig into Derek. Pilho didn't believe that his brother ended her life. Pilho, who wanted to find out the truth, agreed to work with Ji-hoon, who wanted to protect his ex. Ariam was suspicious of her husband. When they visited his mother in the hospital, she talked on the phone in front of him that she found the chip in Sophie's handbag. Then she asked him to have a rest and let her take care of his mom. Sure enough, Derek took the bait. He then went straight to her store. Behind her assistants, he sneaked into her office. While searching for the chip, he accidentally dropped the scissors. Ariam turned on the light and asked what he was doing there. Before he could answer her, she continued asking if he had something to do with Sophie's death. Ji-hoon watched them through the hidden camera. He was worried that Derek might harm Ariam. Ariam asked Derek about his assistant and the recording. She admitted to follow him to the riverbank. Thanks to this, she knew he stalked Sophie. Derek's silence made Sophie to expose him. You're a spy of Helm's, and you failed your mission to eliminate Sophie. Derek was stunned by her exact deduction, but he did not admit that he took Sophie's life. Ariam felt disappointed and decided to move to her mother's place. Derek didn't try to change her mind. This made her cry. Why were her marriages full of lies? Ji-hoon felt so sorry for her. Sitting in his car, Derek teared up. He didn't want to lose her nor put her in danger. There was a big change due to the appearance of the genius female hacker from North Korea whose name was unknown, yet, she was internationally famous when succeeded in hacking Americans' firewall. Ban Ji-min called her genius hacker. He paid her to crack the biometric security created by Sophie to protect her original research project. The hacker asked for a huge amount of money. Ji-hoon offered pay by installments, but she disagreed. Ban Ji-min raised money from members of Team 2, however, 4 of them were poor. Everyone had to lean on CORA. During that time, Derek was negotiating with the hacker. He wanted her to crack the software for him first, and she agreed. She still received money from Ji-hoon. It was the same software, so she would crack it for both sides. About Ariam, her assistant said Ji-hoon asked to see her the other day. He followed to protect her in silence. Actually, he knew everything, but when she lied to him to protect her husband's assistant, he didn't expose her. When she was blaming herself, Ms. Kim came to check on her wedding dress. She preferred the wedding dress Ariam designed for Sophie. Ariam stood before the dress and refused to sell it to Ms. Kim, because it was a relic of her deceased friend. It excited Ms. Kim. She insisted on getting it for herself. Then she left with her arrogance. Kim's attitude kindled Ariam's anger. When she took it off the mannequin, she found Sophie's USB, which the powers were hunting for. Ariam remembered that Ji-hoon said anyone who had it was in danger. She also gradually realized the seriousness of the problem. The USB was the final key to unlock Sophie's software. The hacker failed to crack it because she didn't have the USB. She helplessly reported it to Derek. Right after that, the police wanted to take her to the institute to crack the software. Derek asked Tinker to drive her there. He also gave her a hidden camera. As soon as she arrived, Ji-hoon checked her glasses out, and she quickly dropped it into the fish tank to protect herself, which disconnected her from Derek. The hacker was led to Sophie's office. However, she still failed to crack it. After all, she couldn't succeed without the USB. The hacker fled away with money since she failed to crack Sophie's software. She disguised a graduate student, stole a car, and drove straight to the airport. With just a phone, she successfully created a passport which helped her leave Korea. Team 2 split up to search for her. The hacker totally disappeared. Both Derek and Ji-hoon got a scolding by their bosses. Ariam couldn't let her husband go the wrong way, so she went to see Mr. Ban and admitted her husband's mistake when he spied for a foreign organization against the country, but she hoped he would give him a chance to correct his mistakes. When Ji-hoon came to see her, she also told him the same thing. She wanted him to help Derek out of there. Then they would work together to capture the Baron. Ji-hoon didn't agree as he thought Derek would put her in danger, because she couldn't change human nature. Aryam insisted on saving her husband in her own marriage. Ji-hoon once again softened his heart and made a difficult decision. She agreed to help her maintain her marriage. After Ji-hoon left, she asked her husband to come. She told him to be honest with her, as she didn't want to lose him. She begged him to take the right side, by handing over evidences of Helm's illegal action to Interpol Industrial Espionage Bureau. Derek didn't cover anything, but it was hard for him to make a decision. When he was hesitant, she used their marriage as an ace up your sleeve. Make a choice. Betray Helms and live in peace with me, or betray me and your country. If you can't make up your mind yet, I will give you 3 days to make a decision. This is my last words for you. I love you. Looking at her sparkling eyes and listened to his heartbeat, Derek already knew what he would opt for. Coming back home, he destroyed all his fake passports and hidden phones. He threw them into the flame. That meant he chose his wife. Tinker warned the Baron about Derek's change. Hearing the news, the Baron calmly stroked his iguana. He had enough power to handle Derek. The Baron sent someone to cut off the electricity at Aryam's store. He broke in to find the USB. Aryam and Eric were leading separate lives, couldn't turn on the light. Aryam thought the electrical system was overloaded, so she turned on the emergency light. On the way hiding himself, the intruder made a noise. Aryam followed the noise and checked out on the fitting room. The light reflected through the thin wedding dress as if it was telling Aryam about the intruder. To protect herself, she left the room first, until the intruder came out. She shone the light on his face, but she was no match for him, though she could hurt him with the scissors. He could still knock her senseless, and he left the store before her assistant came to check it out. Aryam was on the floor. The assistant panicky took her to the hospital. She lost consciousness for a moment. For this reason, Aryam was sure that the hidden power knew she was keeping the USB. It was based on Derek's choice to destroy them. 3 days later, he went to see her as promised without his assistant. To prove to that he took her side, Aryam also let him meet Ji-hoon, who was the sheriff protecting Sophie. He introduced himself as an agent hunting spies. Derek took a step back and Ji-hoon grabbed his hand. They entered into alliance with each other. Ji-hoon disliked Derek, yet, he promised Aryam to lead Ji-hoon to the right track. He grabbed Derek's hand tightly. It wasn't over yet. He had lived with a mask for half of his life. Thus, he couldn't expose himself. Spy wasn't a title, it was part of his life. Ji-hoon took Derek to the base for the information about Helms. Mr. Ban, who was experienced and skillful, was nothing in Derek's eyes. Ban failed to fish for information. He was even verbal attacked by Derek. Even when Ji-hoon used the lie detector, his heart rate was still normal. It was Ji-hoon who was excited. His teammates had to stop him from violence. Indeed, Derek was very good at manipulation. He only admitted to be a spy for Helms, yet, he couldn't betray the organization by spoiling all its secret. Aryam hoped Ji-hoon would believe in her husband, and gave him a chance. However, Ji-hoon didn't let his guard down yet. He still needed to dig deeper into Derek, before letting him join this plan. Aryam put the USB in her lipstick's cover, because she didn't buy into anyone. Derek was sad when Aryam didn't go home. He went to see his assistant. Tinker's attitude completely changed since the moment Derek changed his side. Pilho asked why Tinker had a wound in his leg. Tinker said he had a fall. Derek didn't pay attention to it, until when Aryam's assistant asked to see both Ji-hoon and Derek. She blamed them for making Aryam sad. By the way, she told them about the other day when someone broke into the store and knocked Aryam senseless. Ji-hoon and Derek were very worried, and when the assistant said Aryam stabbed the intruder in his leg with her scissors, Derek immediately thought of Tinker. He then checked on the camera and Ji-hoon saw it. That night, Derek saw the intruder broke in again. He immediately headed out for catching the intruder. They had a fight. Derek was knocked down on the ground. He was stunned when the intruder took off his mask. It was Ji-hoon's test on Derek, while Derek only wanted to protect his wife. Hearing Aryam's voice, they hid themselves in the storeroom. Finally, they worked together to protect Aryam. On the following night, they seriously talked with each other on the rooftop. The common target was Kim Dong-taek of DDK Group. They would arrest him at his sister's wedding, because he was related to the Dark Horse who wanted to steal Sophie's technology. Kim was easy to handle. Derek also revealed that Tinker knew who the Baron was, as Tinker was the manager of Helm's spy network. When Aryam showed up, both of them walked towards her. She was so surprised that they could get along together. But she was wrong, as they still disliked one another. 3 of them had a dinner together. She knew Derek couldn't eat spicy food. Ji-hoon mocked at him and ate with his bare hands to prove his manhood. Derek took big bites under provocation. He ate the whole chili just to compete with his wife's ex-husband. Aryam felt helpless. Ji-hoon returned to his team, and shared with them everything Derek told him about Helms. Derek pretended to get the key technology of Eco-Sun, then made a deal with Kim Dong-taek during his sister's wedding. At that time, Team 2 would ambush and arrest him, and make him disclose everything he knew. On the other hand, Ariam tried to worm herself into Ms. Kim's confidence. To cleverly refuse her request for Sophie's wedding dress, Ariam recommended a pair of matching dress for Ms. Kim and her mother. Miss Kim was brought into contempt for being an intimidate child. She agreed for her mother's sake. Also, she entrusted Ariam with her wedding's organization. On her wedding day, Team 2 got in positions around the church. Mr. Ban was waiting with a camera to take photos of them. They each had their own mission during the wedding. However, Kim Dong-taek changed his mind. He didn't want to attend his stepsister's wedding. Derek called him and claimed that he already had the technology of Eco-Sun. He arranged to exchange it at his stepsister's wedding. Arriving at the wedding, he informed Ji-hoon. Then Ji-hoon asked everyone to keep the original plan. After taking Kim Dong-ran to the bride waiting room, she excused herself to go out. She attached a bug in Kim Dong-taek's room. A moment later, Kim Dong-taek appeared at the wedding. He was excited to get the leading technology, yet, after picking up his phone, he got back in the car and headed to the airport. Mr. Ban got furious. There must be a stool pigeon in their team. Returning to the office, he threw things at Ji-hoon, and blamed him for trusting the wrong person. Everything thought it was Derek. Ji-hoon was thought to help Derek. They asked to meet each other at night. Derek, in a high-end suit, didn't have enough money to pay the taxi driver. He asked Ji-hoon to help. The driver angrily got off the cab. Derek stood behind Ji-hoon. Ji-hoon was forced to pay the driver. It proved that Derek really betrayed Kim Dong-taek. For this reason, he lost all his money. Unfortunately, Ji-hoon didn't have enough money. Ariam came in time. When she gave money to the driver, she dropped his key without noticing. It started raining and three of them got in Ariam's car. Ariam couldn't find the key. Ji-hoon and Derek were very competitive. They jumped out of the car and searched for the key. Ariam didn't know what to do. They both found the key at once, and they fought to be the first one who found it. She asked them to carry something in the trunk, then drove away, leaving them in the rain together. After a while, Derek went home. Ariam was also there. Derek cried his heart out. She asked him if he was upset about her and her ex. It took Derek a while to speak up. If I were Ji-hoon, I wouldn't be so tolerant of my ex's new husband. He knew Ji-hoon loved Ariam so much. As for her, she wholeheartedly turned towards him, had a lot of sympathy for each other, and their relationship was healed. They sat side by side to keep warm. The following morning, Derek went to his garage. He looked at his close friend who wanted to harm his wife. Tinker just took orders from the Baron so that Derek didn't expose him. He sent Tinker to Japan to handle Kim Dong-taek. Ariam went to work as usual. She wondered whether she should give the USB to Derek or Ji-hoon. When Kim Dong-ran dropped by, Ariam took advantage of Dong-ran's wish, which was to overthrow her brother. She meant she had evidences to overthrow Kim Dong-taek. If Dong-ran wanted those, she must protect Ariam. Dong-ran immediately agreed with Ariam. While Dubong and his juniors was cleaning up the casino, he discovered a bug in his curtain. Remembering the sudden appearance of Cora, he raised a doubt. As usual, Cora came there to find Dubong. Seeing the bug on the ground, she picked it up and put it in her bag. Dubong saw everything. Eventually, he realized that she had been fooling him. He let Cora leave, then made a plan on revenge. She asked Younggu to fix the bug, as she had no idea that Dubong had figured it out. Mr. Kong called for a meeting, but Younggu couldn't reach Ji-hoon on the phone. Ji-hoon was with Derek, who was doing his mission to pick up a new spy of Helm's. The new spy was from Interpol. That means there was a traitor in Team 2. Derek let Ji-hoon follow him to check it out. According to the source of information, the spy was already up there. Ji-hoon went upstairs with feelings of insecure and disappointment. Helm's staff asked where he was going. Ji-hoon said he was the new spy from Interpol. There were more gangsters appeared and surrounded Ji-hoon. Because the new spy just left a few minutes ago, they realized Ji-hoon was a cop and tried to catch him. Couldn't open the car's door. Ji-hoon thought Derek betrayed him. Derek showed up with a smile and threw hot coffee at the gangsters. Derek and Ji-hoon fought back, but they were too many to deal with. Derek passed the key to Ji-hoon. He scared the gangsters away to make way for Derek to get in the car. Since Tinker was in Japan to carry out his mission, he gave Pilho a video call to show him how to find the pen in Derek's office. After hanging up the phone, he took off the bug. According to his intuition, he knew Tinker was up to something. Hearing the conversation between Tinker and the Baron, it was Tinker, not Derek, who took Sophie's life. Pilho wanted to revenge Tinker. Dubong suddenly showed up. As he was kept on watch, he wanted Helms to protect him. After knowing who ended Sophie's life, Dubong stole the pen and stabbed Pilho. He would use that secret to protect himself. The thing was that the pen was poisoned. Pilho struggled in pain on the ground. It was too late for Dubong to realize it. He regretted about it for only 5 seconds, then he left for his own sake. Pilho still thought of Sophie when he was dying. He couldn't move on. It was also a drive force for him to continue his life. he took his last breath to call Ji-hoon for help. Ji-hoon and Derek immediately headed there to save him. When they heard that Tinker was still in Korea, they went to the store to protect Aryam first. In the meantime, there were 2 officers came to arrest Aryam for stealing diamond. She explained that this was just a fake. Yet, it was too hard to bite. Knowing someone harmed her on purpose, she couldn't say a word. When Ji-hoon and Derek arrived, Aryam was taken away by the officers. Mr. Ban was very uncomfortable when Ji-hoon didn't attend the meeting. After a period of investigation, he found the locations of Helm spies in South Korea. The first location was Derek's garage. Seeing the next location, he got scared and covered the screen. CORA had a look and saw Ji-hoon's phone number. Mr. Ban ordered them to arrest Ji-hoon. Ji-hoon didn't know that he was turned into a traitor, thus, he still asked CORA to save Aryam. Team 2 headed out to the store. They calmly lured Ji-hoon in the car, and suddenly handcuffed him. Mr. Ban asked him how to access to Helm's network. He must save Aryam, so he couldn't let himself be captured. When CORA opened the door, he kicked her and Kong out, then cut off the handcuff. Young-gu gave Ji-hoon a phone as a way to communicate on his run. It was too late when Ji-hoon arrived at the garage. Pil-ho lost his life. He failed to save one more person who entrusted him. He told Derek about the bad news. Both of them were betrayed by their teammates. Ji-hoon was treated as a traitor and Derek might be accused of Pil-ho's death. Coming to his garage, Derek saw his brother's body. He didn't shed a single tear. Checking on the camera and saw Dubong, he banged his fist on table. However, he must keep a cool head to save him first. Derek cleaned the scene and Pil-ho's body. After placing his body in a wooden box, he called his boss. In just one night, 3 righteous people were turned into criminals. Derek visited Aryam in the prison and said sorry for getting her involved. He even acted cute, then promised to get her out of there. He went to find the middleman working for Helms and let them know that Interpol was aiming at them, hence, they should stop connecting to Helms for a while. Derek promised to pay them 4 billion won for fake visa, which helped him, and his wife fled abroad. They were not allowed to let Tinker know. Second, dig into Dubong and eliminate him. As they were experts, they got their job done very quickly. Derek had what he needed when the dark fell. They couldn't catch Dubong yet because he was seeing Tinker. The following day in the embassy, Mr. Ban received an offer from Peter. CIA would take over Sophie's case and Iko-sun, while Interpol focused on Helms, to avoid Interpol members from continuing to be in danger or betray. After a moment of consideration, he agreed, and immediately sent people to Gulliver's squad. He seized all the documents because Ji-hoon, their captain, was the traitor. They were also dismissed from Interpol. In fact, Mr. Ban just wanted to protect them. He kicked them out before the hidden power aimed at them. Young-gu, CORA, and Mr. Kong wondered if they should support Ji-hoon. Meanwhile, Ji-hoon was staying in a small room with a handcuff on his wrist. He used a pin to unlock it. Young-gu, the only one to trust Ji-hoon, let him know that the evidences said Ji-hoon was the economic spy. Someone made up those perfect evidences. Young-gu gave Ji-hoon what he found out. 3 members of Gulliver visited Aryam to ask about Ji-hoon. She learned that he was framed, and his affair with CORA was just a play. Back to the cell, Aryam felt very sorry for him. If only she was calm enough to listen to him, they wouldn't have come this far. Derek recommended a decampment with her, but she rejected. She had to stay here, demanding justice for those who had sacrificed in herself. She didn't want her husband to be a coward. He couldn't tell her how powerful and dangerous Helms was. They were like small ants fighting with an elephant. He asked all the powerful people for help, but they couldn't take her out yet. 1 tree cannot make a forest. 3 trees will form a jungle. In order to save her, Aryam's friend found the evidence of Dongran's illegal action and used it to make Dongran get Aryam out of jail. Kim Dongran fretfully brought the real diamond to the store. She told Dure to tell the police that her diamond wasn't stolen. As a result, Aryam was released. Derek hugged her when she got home. Both of them were happy when it was resolved. However, her mother-in-law didn't really care for Aryam. Derek was aware of it. Just moments later, Derek's mother went to Helm's base. The following day, Aryam went to work. Her employees warmly welcomed her with tofu. To repay Kim Dongran's favor, Aryam decided to give her Sophie's USB. Kim Dongtaek was hunting for it to sell the Japanese, or to use it to make a grab for power. Hence, it was reasonable to give Dongran the USB as she would keep it a secret. They went to the lab at midnight and used Sophie's fingerprint given by Sung Hwan. They successfully unlocked the first step. When they inserted the USB, they were still blocked by the system. That meant it wasn't the final key. Kim Dongran spent 2 billion won for nothing. She got mad and whacked Aryam on the head with the police ID card, which wasn't revoked. Ji-hoon could check the camera of the stores to find the stool pigeon. The one always wore a mask, so Ji-hoon couldn't know who he was. CORA still went to see Dubong. She saw the bruises on the finger of his henchman. Ji-hoon once said the culprit shooting Sophie had a bruise on his hand. CORA looked at him and he was hiding a gun behind. He looked at her with a grim smile, yet, he was no match for her. she asked him where Dubong was. Meanwhile, Young-gu was trying to call her, to let her know that Dubong was doing a transaction with Helms at the quay. The stool pigeon was Mr. Kong. Young-gu filmed them. Dubong's man caught him. Mr. Kong heard the noise and fled away. Young-gu was forced to kneel down before Dubong. He unlocked Young-gu's phone. Dubong then knew that Cora was working with Young-gu. The situation suddenly turned around. When Cora appeared on her motorbike, she demolished the barrel and picked up a chunk of wood to fight. Young-gu untied himself and got a half Nelson on Dubong. Dubong could still threw Young-gu away, then picked up another chunk of wood to fight Cora, as he still had feelings for her. He said sorry when shoved her to the ground. Young-gu pressed him down. Dubong stabbed Young-gu and fled away with his men. They thought Cora and Young-gu were still members of Gulliver. About Ji-hoon, he read the email sent by Young-gu. He also suspected that Mr. Kong was the stool pigeon. His alias was Purple Field, which was on his wife's hat. Ji-hoon saw his family photo. Then he went to see Aryam in private to let her know he was safe. Aryam sighed with relief. She asked him if his affair was just a play. When Ji-hoon confirmed it was just a play, Aryam teared up. She blamed herself for not giving him a chance to explain. It was her who ruined their marriage. He consoled her that it wasn't her fault. It was the wrong time to meet. Derek saw them hugging each other. Aryam didn't know how to explain it. It was beyond his endurance. He asked Aryam to chuck in with Ji-hoon right away. He could only let it slide this time. The more she tried to explain, the more crazy her husband became. Ji-hoon required Derek to stop controlling her and got a punch in his face. Derek threatened to hand Ji-hoon over to the police. They began to fight. Aryam couldn't stop them from ruining her wedding dresses. She bought apples as an apology to her husband. Coming home, she saw their broken wedding photo. Derek said he dropped it by accident, yet, he didn't let Aryam to hug him, as he didn't want the pieces cut her. There were already rifts between them. Young-gu woke up in the hospital. Mr. Ban visited him as a side reason. He actually went there to enjoy peaches with Young-gu. Ji-hoon also came there with anxiety. Mr. Ban wanted to take him in. Cora told Mr. Ban that the stool pigeon was Mr. Kong. They needed to catch him first and then Helms. Mr. Ban gave Ji-hoon a can of peach as an apology. He ate all the pieces of peach. Ji-hoon was too bored to speak. Gulliver was reborn. They had enough clues to prove Mr. Kong was Helm's spy. Family was everything to Kong. Nevertheless, his wife still cheated on him. He lost his mind and chose the wrong way. Dubong also accepted to Helms. That was why Dubong met up with Kong at the quay. They had another meeting in a hotel. Cora called Dubong's henchman and knew where he was. Dubong was stunned when she and Ji-hoon ambushed him. Cora wanted to handle him and she did it. They handcuffed him. Ji-hoon took the key card then went to find Mr. Kong. Derek's mother asked to see Aryam in the same hotel. She said she wanted to get closer to Aryam, yet, she somehow blamed Aryam for making Derek change. She left the hotel after their talk. Aryam followed her to give her a gift. When Mrs. Choi passed by, Ji-hoon's intuition told him to follow her. She went to a hotel room. Aryam was about to call her. Ji-hoon stopped her from speaking. They saw her seeing Mr. Kong. That meant she was also a senior manager of Helms. They told each other a few words and she left very soon. When he knew she was Aryam's mother-in-law, Ji-hoon was shocked. Perhaps she was the leader of Helms. He decided to use Mr. Kong to catch the bigger fish. Dubong begged Cora to let him go as he was running away from Helms. Derek wanted the same thing. Mrs. Choi raised Derek as a genius spy. That was why she hated Aryam. She was the one pouring wine on her dress, putting her in jail, and scaring Derek to the utmost. He was afraid that his mom would harm Aryam when she knew everything, so he begged her not to let his mother know. To protect them both, he had to lie. Lies were her biggest fear in marriage. Derek saw her leaving him in pain. Remembering his childhood, his mother told him to cover himself with a smile. He had never really smiled. The reason why he fought against Helms was to run away from his mother. Tinker kept in touch with Kim Dong-taek and remained faithful to Mrs. Choi. She ordered Tinker to get rid of Aryam. The reason why Derek lost his way: Aryam went out alone at night. When Tinker was trying to hit her, Derek showed up and saved her. He lost his senses, which made Aryam cry. Tinker ran away without a feeling. Ji-hoon also arrived. He comforted Aryam and followed after Tinker. She called the ambulance to take Derek to the hospital. His eyes were seriously injured. Aryam and Ji-hoon were there with him. Mrs. Choi was on the way to visit her son. Aryam had two choices: run away or let Choi know she knew everything. Before making up her mind, Choi opened the door. Ji-hoon and Aryam hid themselves in the wardrobe. They accidentally made a noise. Choi was about to open the wardrobe. Fortunately, the nurse called her out for filling the papers. Ji-hoon took the chance to escape from there. Aryam acted like she just came there. She cried pretending not to know anything. Mrs. Choi let her guard down. She couldn't leave South Korea when her son was injured. This was also a rare opportunity for Interpol to arrest the leader of Helms. Derek woke up. yet, his eyes didn't recover yet. Ariam stayed with him all the time and forgave him. Derek was happy about that. She was the only one made him smile with true happiness. Ariam cried for him. In a marriage, they could only accept one another when they were on the same wavelength. She drew a beautiful pair of eyes on the bandage with a hope of quick recovery. Then they would fight the evil together. They were happy together again. After that, she asked to see Ji-hoon, and gave him the USB because she couldn't crack it. She believed that Sienna Park could do it. However, she would use it for something else first. For this reason, she asked him to take care of Derek for her. Then she arranged her work. Ji-hoon paid a visit to Derek with a tight embrace. He then took Derek to the ophthalmologist, taking Derek to the rooftop for a fresh air. Ji-hoon drew an ugly pair of eyes on the bandage. Derek promised to give him Helm's confidential documents. In return, Ji-hoon would let him leave in secret. He didn't want to compete with this life anymore, neither take Ariam with him. Ji-hoon couldn't accept this selfishness. He also began to hesitate thinking of Ariam. In the meantime, Ariam was seeing Mrs. Choi, while cutting off thread ends with the scissors. She asked Mrs. Choi to let her husband alone, realizing that Ariam knew everything. Mrs. Choi told her to leave Derek. Ariam used the USB for a transaction with Choi. Choi agreed with Ariam's offer as she had what Choi needed. Next, Choi told Derek that she wouldn't eliminate Ariam since she was still useful. Ariam was smart enough to keep the important thing, before Derek could say something. Ariam's mother visited him. She took good care of him like he was her real son. Choi felt left out of things when knowing that was her in-laws. Ariam's mother cut off the thread ends with her teeth. That shocked Choi. Sung-hwan went to see Ariam at her store to let her know that Sophie spent most of her time in the lab. To crack her system, they need to unlock all the computers in her lab. Before cracking the host computer, he quit the job so he wasn't allowed to get in there. Ji-hoon and Ariam sneaked into the lab. She pretended to be a janitor and stole Sophie's retinas and fingerprints, then go to the computer room with Ji-hoon. They successfully unlocked the first computer with biometry scan. They plugged the USB and successfully passed the first layer of security. Team 2 closely followed to support them. They were blocked by the next layer of security. It was easy for Young-gu. It took him 2 minutes to unlock. Ji-hoon had 3 minutes to keep going. They did the same as the first step. Finally, they successfully got Iko-sun. Ji-hoon hugged and thanked Ariam. Team 2 screamed in joy. When Ji-hoon brought it away, Ariam copied the data without letting him know. Ji-hoon said he forgot the key and came back inside to find. When he turned his back, she left the USB on the car hood. Tinker came and grabbed it, then brought it to Mrs. Choi. It was the transaction between Ariam and her mother-in-law. In exchange for a peaceful life for Ariam and her husband, she sold it to Kim Dong-taek. Helms just needed money, not to save the world. But they didn't know that the room was full of hidden cameras. Team 2 was waiting outside. After they closed the deal, they stormed in and arrested them. Kim Dong-rand gave them a hand. Actually, Ariam didn't betray. She set Choi up with the consent of Derek. They all worked together to arrest the leader of Helms. However, they missed out on Tinker. He escaped with the Iko-sun project. Unexpectedly, Kong wanted to confess. He stood on the bank of the river, waiting for Team 2, only when Ji-hoon appeared. He opened his mouth. He hated his wife for cheating on him. It was because he was always busy with his missions without spending time for his family. That was the reason why he wanted to betray. It was too late to address his faults, and he only let himself caught by Ji-hoon. Kong asked Ji-hoon to handcuff him. Ji-hoon held back his tears and handcuffed his teacher, which made him disappointed and downhearted. After all, Ji-hoon went to see Derek. They both put their beloveds in jail. They just did it for justice, yet, they still felt a twinge of guilt. Mrs. Choi wanted to visit her son before the interrogation. She knew him played a part and reminded him the last man stand would be the winner. She confidently said they would meet again. Before leaving, she told Ariam that it was Derek who took Sophie's life. Ariam was so shocked that she wished Choi just lied to her. Choi claimed it was true. Ariam wondered whether she should buy into Choi or Derek. Then she realized it was just a divisive ruse. Choi was trying to break their faith in each other. She didn't lose her temper. Right after that, she watched a video sent by Tinker. Derek came to the amusement park where Sophie lost her life. Ariam failed to maintain her composure. On the other hand, Young-gu realized that Choi transferred all her money to her son. If she was sentenced, they would be involved. Soon after, CORA seized all the documents at Ariam's store. Ariam immediately headed to her store. As soon as she left, Derek took off the bandage. His eyes was recovering. However, someone was trying to harm him. He quietly changed Derek eye drops. Derek actually heard it. So he asked Young-gu, who just got in, about the one leaving a moment ago. Young-gu didn't know. A while later, Ariam came back. She exchanged words with Derek because of his mother. They were blaming instead of understanding each other. Ji-hoon told Ariam that the video did not prove that Derek was the culprit. Though she knew, she still got mad. She realized she didn't love him as much as she did before. It was her selfishness caused her anger. Her broken marriage upset her. Derek disappeared. He went to the garage to see the traitor with his injured eyes. It was Tinker who ended Sophie's life. Derek only followed after him. In order to be purged of sin, he had to get rid of Tinker before a bunk. Derek accidentally dropped the keychain. When he bent down, Tinker grabbed the chance to hit him. Derek could avoid the kick. The traitor was really Tinker. Tinker failed to take Derek down, as Derek was his trainer. Tinker was confused when Derek could still see the way. Derek knocked Tinker out and pointed a gun at him. It was easy to end everything, yet, Derek felt sorry for training Tinker to be someone like that. So far, Tinker had been living as a spy. He gave Tinker a chance to live. Then left with his brother's body. When Ji-hoon and Ariam arrived, there left only the car Derek customized for her. 10 days later, Young-gu found the location of Derek's car. They immediately went there, checking the dash cam. They saw Derek immersed himself in the lake. The police found a body but failed to verify the identification. The wedding ring and ID card were found. Ji-hoon felt helpless for the first time in his life. He couldn't help pitiful Derek. Ariam couldn't stand on her feet hearing the news. Ji-hoon carried her. He promised to take care of her from then on. Ariam's mother was clever and kind, who helped Ariam overcome the pain. The house was empty after Derek's death. Tinker ran away. Mrs. Choi was arrested, so Ji-hoon proposed to end Sophie's case. When Ji-hoon let Choi see how Derek took his own life, Mrs. Choi was proud instead of grief. She knew something spectacular was coming up. Ji-hoon checked out on the computer in Derek's garage. All the folders were empty. He raised a doubt. Perhaps Derek faked his death with Pilho's body. The house cleaners called Ariam. They found her husband's ring on the floor. How could this happen? The police gave her his ring the other day. Indeed, Derek was still alive. He was leaving Seoul. He saw Ji-hoon staring at the hidden camera, so he showed up in front of Ji-hoon. He faked his death to leave Ariam even though he still loved her. He loved her too much that he only wanted her to live a good life, so he cut off a connection between her and Helms. That was the only way to keep her safe, and he would be back to his position as if he had never married her. That meant he would confront Ji-hoon again. Ji-hoon was hesitant to handcuff Derek. After all, he let Derek go. Ji-hoon made up his mind. Though he knew Ariam didn't move on yet and she was in pain after her husband's death, he still stayed by her side every day. Again, he tried to make her believe in love. In fact, she was still in love with him, so after a while, they came back together and kept going on their life. The end. Thanks for watching, goodbye, and see you next time.